Today is Memorial Day, a day to remember. And so I want to share a story. It's a story of a girl and her two brothers. The girl was born in 1932. This was the time we called the Great Depression, a time economic hardship swept across the land. I never knew such hard times. The Great Depression was over long before I was born, and the girl never spoke much about hard times, but her family came from farm stock. They had never had much to begin with, and maybe when you didn't have much to lose, you didn't notice so much when things went bad as those who did. Born in 1932, she was too young to understand completely 9 years later when America was swept up in a world war far from her home. But she was the baby of the family. Her two brothers were older, old enough to be swept away, far away, from the simple farm life the girl called home. The girl loved her brothers and they loved her. They were big and strong, the kind of brothers who could sweep her up, swing her around, carry her on their broad shoulders. They were big and boisterous and filled with fun and laughter, but they were going away, far away. She didn't understand, but she hid her sadness with pride for her two strong brothers in their crisp, sharp uniforms, and she knew what they were doing was good and important. Brother number one went away to Europe, and he bonded with his brothers in arms the way all soldiers do. And he wrote home of new friends and new sights and adventures, and the girl held on dearly to every letter, until the letters stopped coming. What muddy roads he slogged down, what fields he crossed, and what battles he fought in don't really matter. You've seen the pictures and heard the stories, and understand that the details don't differ all that much, and that the pictures and the stories are never truly horrific enough. We can try to picture the landscape, but no, we can never know what it was to be there. The little girl's brother wasn't shot. He wasn't killed in any battle. He escaped unharmed but not unscathed. But in the middle of one of those endless battles, it fell to her brother to hold his best and closest friend, his comrade, as his life slipped out of him, half his friend's face torn away by an enemy grenade. There was no PTSD in World War II. There was only combat exhaustion and battle fatigue. The military treated soldiers with drugs like sodium pentothal and, believe it or not, by dispersing liquor to affected soldiers. By the time the girl's big brother came home, he had settled on the latter treatment as the way to dull the pain. It was a medicine he would never relinquish. Brother number two had no such horror stories. He went across the Pacific, spending time in Hawaii and the Philippines. He was spared the bloodiest of the front lines, and in fact spent most of his time as a driver for military brass and political leaders, touring them around between social events, parties. He won their favor for the same bon vivant personality that had thrilled his little sister, his penchant for laughter and fun. He knew how to find and bring the best times, filling days and nights with alcohol and women, viewing both as little more than the traditional spoils of war. It was a lifestyle he grew to love, and when the final sounds of battle were stilled and he came home, he brought those appetites home with him. And so the little girl grew up, and as she did, she learned to understand and accept the changes in her older brothers. She learned to handle calls from hospitals and police stations, learned when to step in to protect nieces and nephews, learned to love a pair of men she knew, but learned to mourn silently the loss of the two brothers she had known, the two who had once tossed her lovingly into the air. It was years before the brothers died. They lived full lives, and for that everyone was grateful. And every year at this time, they regretted the loss of all those who didn't, of those brothers, their comrades in arms, lost and buried across the oceans in foreign lands. But eventually the end came for the brothers as well, and the little girl watched as both ultimately lost a battle long marked by an endless string of bottles, known most appropriately as dead soldiers. This Memorial Day, remember those who gave their lives in battle, certainly, but remember also that not every good man lost was put to rest before the fresh green of new grass had covered the battlefields.